It is demonstration time, a technique demonstration. And here what we're going to work with is our knobs, and what the heck, we're going to work with tuners too, because this is kind of a fun with T-nuts kind of adventure here. And you can use them in both. So what I'm going to start with is sizing up my knob. Now in this case I want to make a 2-inch knob. So I've got my 2-inch hole cutter bit in my drill press. You can do this with a hand drill. I like a drill press because it makes sure everything's 90 degrees and I don't have to worry about my bad eyes on these sorts of things. But if you don't have a drill press, you can't afford a drill press, hand drill, you can do this also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the hole cutter, the hole saw first to mark out my pattern. Instead of taking the time with a compass or anything like that, I'm actually just going to go Jungle Gym on it, or Primitive Pete. So here we go. I've got a center line drawn on the board, so I'm just going to make sure that I hit my center line. And I'm touching it up to the wood. And that's all I'm going to do for right now. Now I'm going to set up my next one right next to it. I'm going to get it as close as I can. There we go. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see right there. And since these are going to be knobs, I'm going to make sure I got someplace where my fingers can catch hold. And that's why I only did it to that level there. I just want to see where the outline's going to be. Because now I'm going to use a Forstner bit. In this case it's about a 3/4 inch Forstner bit. And I'm going to cut out 3 spots on each. Pardon me, I'm going to do a common one here, since I got these two sharing a common border. And then 1 in each corner. So if I had a isosceles triangle I could stick in there, it would give me exactly the pattern I'd want. Right now I'm just sort of flying by eye. Oops, excuse me. So I keep doing these right after lunch and I start getting the hiccups in the middle of it all. Okay, so I put my Forstner bit in. Now I'm going to use it to make my thumb grabbers. And I'm not doing this in a real big hurry, so I'm not getting a lot of tear out or anything like that. Now it's going to be simple. I just put the hole saw back in and finish off cutting it out. Now I'll do that in 2 steps. I'll cut most of the way from this side and then turn it over and finish the job off from the other. I could also take this over to my bandsaw and cut these out really easily, but not everybody has a bandsaw, so I'm not going to demonstrate with a bandsaw. Whereas a hand drill or a small drill press, they're easy to pick up. Not very expensive at all. And they don't take up a heck of a lot of room. And if you remember back over in the pen making video, I even had a small drill press that your hand drill would fit into. Oops, let's start with the outside one. Okay, I had a bit of a camera burp on that bit to show you how to cut the thing out finally. So we're going to do it again, only this time I'm just taking a piece of scrap wood. I'm going to show you how I measure how I'm cutting it out. That is, I get my saw started, and I'm drilling it off on purpose here so you can see it going through. Alright, so I go almost all the way through, and then I stop. Now my drill bit in the middle of the hole saw there has penetrated all the way through the wood, so now I can turn it over and finish it off from this side. Now in doing so, I make a nice clean cut with no tear out on either side, and I leave enough sticking out that when it's cooler, at the moment it's pretty hot so everything's expanded, when it cools down you can get hold of it and get it out of the hole saw. Sometimes though, it takes a pair of channel locks to do this. So I got a pair of channel locks standing by. Just enough that you can get a grip on it and get it started turning out the other way. So there, I got a nice smooth cut all the way around. No tear out really. So I'll cut this one into a spacer. Now that's step one, step two. Step three, let's see. Cut the pattern, cut the thumbs, cut it out. So that's step three. Now step four is drilling it out to accept the barrel of the T-nut. Now you'll see the T-nut has got this threaded barrel on it, like that. And the diameter on that barrel is about 9/32 of an inch, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe slightly bigger. So now I'm just going to drill this out. Well, I'm drilling this one out all the way. There we go. Now I can force the T-nut barrel in, and it'll probably be easier from the other side. There we go. It's forced in far enough that I can now finish it off with a hammer over on the workbench. And there I'll have a set of knobs. Now comes the tuners, the screen holders, the micro adjusters, whatever you want to call them. Now, since I've already got the 9/32 in, I'm going to show you how I did this originally, back in 77, 78, whatever. And that is, once again, before I start drilling, let's have a look at the grain. Now you can see the grain, you can see the growth rings in this little piece of wood here. You see how they're going across like that. So I want to drill across those growth rings, because those growth rings are going to help lock the bolt in place to keep it from moving freely. So I've marked a center. This is 2 1/4 inch, 3/4 inch block. So 2 1/4 inches long, 3/4 inches height and width. Now in dead center, I'm going to drill a hole just deep enough to accommodate the barrel of the T-nut. And you notice the T-nut does not penetrate all the way through that guy. So I've got at least half of it left over that's going to act as locks for the bolt that I'm going to run through. So first was drilling with the 9/16. I can pull that on out. And now, the tip of this 9/16, wherever I put it, there we go, in the bottom of that hole, left me a nice center, because that's a nice tip on it. So I'm going to use that center to guide my number 10 drill bit the rest of the way through. So there's that one. Now, here's how I've been making them over the last few years. What the T-nut is going to do for me, I dropped it, there we go. What the T-nut is going to do for me is give me long-lasting threads that won't pull out. I can really torque down on this, and it's just going to pull tighter into the wood, and it's not going to tear the threads out of the wood. Now, in a low-stress application, I don't need to use the T-nut. I'm just going to take the number 10 drill bit and drill all the way straight on through. Okay? Now the next step I need to do is I need to drill mounting holes. So the block gets turned over onto its side. And then I've got an 1/8 inch drill bit with a countersink on it. And these get drilled in the center, 3/8 inch from either end. I'm going to raise my drill press up a little bit here. A little bit on that one, but it will still do the job that I want it to do. There we go. So now get that T-nut in there. So now I have a T-nut type that I'll still need to thread a bolt through, and then the non-T-nut type that I'll have to put a bolt through. So give me a second, we'll go over to the workbench and we'll finish these guys off. Okay, I've finished off driving in the T-nuts in both knobs and the adjuster, tuner, screen holder, or whatever you want to call it. You'll notice that this here T-nut stays within the bounds of the tuner. It doesn't overflow, it doesn't overlap, it's not going to impact the screen at all. Now what I'm going to do to make sure I get the threads cut all the way through is I'm going to just put in a bolt. I'm going to get it started, and when it gets through the bottom of the T-nut, it's going to get firm. And when it gets too firm, well, then we're going to convince it to go farther. Basically heating up those threads, and now I've got some nice threads cut into the wood down inside. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to see down inside there, but you can actually see the threads that just cut through. And now if I thread this here bolt through, you notice it's starting to take a little bit of pressure to get that all the way through with my fingers. I can get some leverage if I grab hold of the bolt and use the tuner itself. Now I'll put a nut on there, then I'll lock it to a wing nut so I've got something for my thumbs to get hold of. And now I have a viable tuner. This is exactly what I made back in 77, 78, back when I was in wood shop in high school. It's not just going to move if you're bumping it. you got to put some effort behind it to move it. The threads in the T-nut are going to be more durable. I could actually crank this down against something and it's not going to tear out. But I think that's overkill. I think this whole design is overkill for the screen printing that we do. Or if we were using it for screen printing. By the way, I'm not using these anymore for screen printing. I'm using the 3-point system. But I know there's other people out there that want to make them, and they want to make them right. So, because I think that's overkill, that's why I went to this simpler one. Okay? And once again, we have to take it, we have to get the bolt started in it. And when you can't move it with your fingers anymore, you either take a wrench or the convincer. And you'll go slow the first time. And when you get all the way through, and there we go. We got threads cut in this one now too. And if I reach out and find another carriage bolt, wherever the heck I put those things, ah, there they are, right in front of me. No wonder I couldn't find them. Okay, once again, this grain, these growth rings going through the wood, are acting like lock washers basically, which make it harder to bring that thing through. Even threaded, it's going to have a little bit of snugness. Now this one's extra snug, so what I might normally do with him is put a little shellac or something on the threads and run them through. It acts like a little bit of a lubricant and also gets onto the threads and hardens them up a little bit. So now I'm going to grab it with a pair of pliers up the head of the carriage bolt, bring it the rest of the way through. And now I can do the nut and wing nut thing. And there we go. We've got another viable tuner. Once again, it's not going to move on its own. It's firm. If I want to turn it, it turns. If I don't want it to turn, it's not going to go all by itself. You got to make a concerted effort. Yet it's not so hard that you got to take a wrench to it. So for the normal screen printing application, there you go. It's not loose. There's no lock washer on the outside holding it in place. It's all the wood taking care of it all by itself. So the fairy tales you were told on another channel, you don't have to believe them anymore because there's the proof. Now we'll go on to something else. Okay, now the technique is slot cutting. On a router table, that is. There's lots of ways to do it. You can do it with a drill press and a Forstner bit, just cutting consecutive holes. With Forstner bits, you can get those holes pretty much on top of each other, and then you file it out or sand it out or do whatever you have to do to smooth it. But a router table makes it a heck of a lot easier. And router tables come in all price ranges, shapes, sizes. They're easy to make. I showed you how to make a table with a router insert back in the early episodes of this channel. So I'm going to keep using a router table myself. Now I'm not going to do an actual piece that we would be working with because, well, I've already built all those. So I'm just using a piece of scrap wood. And what I want to do is, let's say I want to make a slot at 2 inches, pretty much right down the center of this one. It's just a piece of plywood. So what I'll do is I'll set my fence. Oh, and let's say I want to make it 2 inches, and we'll go 4 inches long from there to there. So what I want to do is I want to measure my fence from my fence to the center of my router bit here, and this is a spiral cutting router bit, and I'm going to set it at 2 inches right dead on center, and if I put my glasses on it'll be much easier to see. Now I'll tighten up my fence, and you can't see that because my arm's in the way, but trust me, my fence is getting tightened. And I want to snug that down real good because I don't want it shifting on me. And of course, measure twice, cut once. That's close enough to my 2-inch mark. Alright, so I'm going 2 inches, and from here to here is 4 inches. So that's where I'm making my cut. Now you'll notice right here there's a piece of blue painter's tape, and in the middle of that blue painter's tape, even with the center of the spiral cutting bit, there's a line. So I've got a reference to the center of my spiral cut bit. So now all I have to do is drop this down on top of the bit, starting at my start line and ending at my finish line. And this is how all the slots on this project have been cut. Now, thicker material, I may have made 3 passes over to get the bit all the way through, but it was the same technique time after time after time. So let's see how this works. And there you go. One perfectly centered slot. Now, the whole time I made sure I kept absolute positive pressure up against the fence, because a router bit is spinning, it tends to want to move the material in the direction it's cutting. Now, luckily, the spiral of the cut is toward the fence. However, when I went back the opposite direction, now I'm being forced out this way instead of toward the fence. So I absolutely had to keep positive pressure here, and I only did the backstroke in the wrong direction to basically clear the cut, get all the excess stuff out of it, make sure it smoothed all the edges all the way through. So I would not have tried to take a full cut going in the wrong direction. That would be from left to right. I always want to cut from right, pardon me, let's see, cutting from right to left, yeah. Bad direction, right to left, good direction, left to right. So that's it for that technique. Now if I was making a wider slot underneath for a carriage bolt head, I would center in the exact same place and just use a larger cutting bit for the depth I wanted to go. But that's about it. All the techniques are done for this. So how's that for learning techniques? And I hope you learned a little something today. Well, here it is. Once again, it's a little bit different from what we started with way back a year ago, but it's really evolved. And once again, that's the fun of DIY. Everything evolves. At least I hope it does. So this is our press as it sits now, and this is a great working press. I definitely work with it all the time. Well, I do work with it all the time. But there's still a couple of things that that bother me about it. And what we're going to do in the next episode is we're going to explore an alternative. So this is a great press. I'd recommend it to anybody. But the next one is something that's going to appease my picky nature for the future. So that's all I got right now. Like I said, everything's going to be up on the website. A whole new package. It's not ready yet, but I'm going to get there hopefully before the first of the year, the first of 2013, because hopefully this video stays up for several years. In the meantime, until I come up with that new press, y'all keep up the good fight, and we'll see you later.